first time in one of these little cubicle kind of garden sheds. Nice, nice. Mainly for food and, well, snugs really, aren't they?
Yeah, they're little snugs. And during the comedy festival, I actually stuck in a few podcasters into these, and they had little interview booths and all, you know.
Nice. And it's a tidy little idea because, you know, there would be nights, especially in Ireland, where you just want to take shelter when even though you're outside, you still feel like a little hut.
A pint without getting soaked. Do you know what I mean?
Now, we were talking just before we came in here that I hadn't realised, of course, that Hardy Har would be around long enough to have sort of started during the O'Toole era. So
absolutely, yeah.
Now, when you started that, and it was, you know, Mr. O'Toole said we'll give you 3 nights and see how it goes.
Yeah.
Were you fairly kind of convinced, or were you, did you think, I'll give it a shot and see what happens? Or
yeah, it was a bit closer to I'll give it a shot and see what happens. Do you know what I mean? I had no convictions now about how it could turn out, and I certainly never imagined it would turn out to what it is today. I never thought a festival would be on the horizon. I never thought big names would come in. I always thought it'd be an open mic night. That was the way I envisioned it. Like, I thought it'd be new emerging acts, and if we got 1 or 2 half decent ones, we'd be doing well. And for the beginning, like, it was very much us imposing on people's nights in the main lounge. You know, a lot of people were like, I didn't know there was comedy on tonight. They were used to their trad music and their live music and all. So it was tough. It was a tough beginning, but we ploughed through.
Are we talking about the era of, maybe it's even before, after that, where you know, comedy was the new rock and roll, and Ireland was Elvis, really, because you had Dylan Moran and a bunch of people. Every time Edinburgh had their festival, the Irish walked away with all the gongs, and the Perrier was a sense that it was just an Irish thing. Was it after that? Or
I think we were riding the crest of that wave. I think it was kind of the fallout, the aftermath of that, and it kind of ignited a fire in a lot of kind of creative people that comedy could have been an outlet for them. So what you had was a saturation of people looking for stage time, and particularly in the kind of Dublin region, and Bray certainly didn't have a platform now. You know, Bray's my hometown, so I wanted something close to home where I could kind of hone my skills, but also facilitate my kind of friends or my newfound buddies, and give them a space to kind of, I don't know, develop theirs as well, you know. So it was just a nice timing, I want to say. It was just nice timing.
And obviously you yourself had, you're a very funny guy. You do an incredible job here, and not only we will get onto your solo shows, but as a sort of like MC here, it's always been a huge part of the night that you're just able to sort of work with an audience, and it's your job really to kind of steer them left and right when they're having a bit of a boisterous time or otherwise. And did you, I don't know if you did already know that this was something that you would do, or again, was it like a shot in the dark for you?
Absolutely. Like, when I first got into the comedy, like, I was all about writing jokes and turning over kind of my writing, and, you know, trying new stuff, trying to find a voice, trying to find an identity. And one thing that I started ignoring was, like, I was hosting all these shows and I was enjoying more the interaction, the live interaction with people, the off the cuff stuff. And nobody ever turned around to me and said, it's okay to do just that. I never sought out the MC spots, do you know what I mean? But that was what became my strength, and that is probably what my voice is. I like to chat to people and see where that goes, and then kind of, if you like, pull the night together, you know, create a kind of a nice environment for other acts to kind of perform. And I suppose that's where I'm very lucky, because this year is the year where other people have recognised that, and I've got a couple of big festivals kind of have backed me. I've got a couple of good venues have backed me this year and given me the shot to do that. So now I feel like this is my identity. I'm meant to be the host. I'm meant to MC. You know. Now,
when it comes to, you know, a full house here in the Harbour Bar, or you're out there looking at a few thousand people at a Tommy Tierney gig and you're doing support, is it the same feeling, or would you naturally feel quite petrified by a large, you know, room of strangers that you don't? It's not your home. It's not your turf. I don't know if that's all.
I definitely feel more comfortable in the Hardy Har, in the Harbour Bar. Like, definitely that is like performing in my sitting room, you know. I mean, that's perfect,
and you can throw people out, which is nice.
Exactly. But the size of a crowd doesn't concern me. It's about maybe how into it they are. You know, if I'm watching from off stage and, you know, it looks like the comedians are having to labour and work that little harder to get people on board, or, you know, it's not a comedy savvy audience, that stuff might run through your head. But no venue or stage or size of crowd concerns me. sometimes the smallest crowds can be the toughest.
Yeah,
you know
yeah.
what I mean? When
Yeah,
you're
yeah.
in front of, say, 400, 500 people, laughter will just flow through them. Energy
Sure.
just kind of, accumulates. Whereas if you do a Tuesday night gig in city centre in front of 9 people,
Yeah, yeah.
it's you and them, and you can feel every little kind of,
The silence can be deafening.
Oh,
and
absolutely.
Yeah.
So you have to labour through that. So no, I wouldn't be intimidated by big crowds, but just the idea that some people aren't there for comedy, they're the ones you have to work.
Right. Now we should mention, of course, you have 2 shows coming up. The first show sold out, and then you very, very, very kindly decided to do a second show, and you're doing it for charity. So the charity again is this is in Dundrum.
It's Suicide or Survive is the charity. I've done a couple of bits for them already.
Right.
Danny O'Brien also did his the end of his tour for Suicide or Survive. Obviously, being a youth worker during the day, I just know how kind of pertinent an issue mental health and good mental health is. And I know the guys at Suicide or Survive, and I was like, why not? Like, I sold out. Never thought I would sell out the first show, if I'm being honest.
Yeah.
It sold out very, very quickly, and they said, how would you feel about doing a second night? And I felt, well, I don't want to do it if it's not for a good reason. Like, I've got everything I want out of this first night, so it's a giving back exercise.
Well, that's a beautiful thing, that here you are, this is your kind of home, and it's obviously a labour of love that you've been running the Hardy Har for 11 years now, or what?
We'll be celebrating our 10th year in October.
Right.
Yeah.
So that idea that this is really just about largely helping others. I mean, obviously you're having fun, and you're getting a great kind of kick from the night yourself, hearing comedians that you know and comedians you don't know. But to have that sort of stepping out and playing at a large theatre on your own, that's a lovely feeling, I'm sure, because that's a whole kind of different kick, really. That you're getting a lot of people to go out to Dundrum and see you just do your one man show.
That's exactly what it is. And I've done 3 solo shows previous to this, and it's an exercise in terms of write something new, find your voice, see where you're at, map it out in terms of your evolution as an act. But coming into this 4th show, I was like, do I really have a true gauge of how invested people are if I've done every solo show in my home venue first? So I was like, no, I'm going to go a little further afield. I know Dundrum isn't a huge stretch away from Bray, but it requires that investment that people will move to see me and pay to see me. My gigs are free admission in the Harbour Bar, so they pay in to see the show. And then also, that puts a pressure on me to write something that's true. And I think this may be the truest in all the struggles I've had in terms of finding a voice as a comedian. This is one I feel that's very true without it necessarily having to be deep and meaningful and dark or any of that kind of stuff. It is feel good. It is joke filled. But it does tackle a pertinent issue, and again, that's the mental health stuff.
It is called the big happy head on you, which is a nice kind of way to both be positive, but also you are going into the heads of what exactly we are. As especially in this day and age of we spoke earlier about just the way social media is definitely going to have an effect on a generation, how they see themselves and how they kind of present themselves, and that seems to be forever evolving right now. Hopefully it'll all settle into a good happy place, but it's I don't know whether you yourself with in regard to mental health would feel that's an issue now for people, that there is anxiety that comes with that, and a sense of
absolutely it's the thing that we are talking about, and it's the thing that we should be talking about, but I often feel that there's just that little stigma and that mistake that people can make, that when we talk about mental health we must talk about mental illness. And I don't agree with that. If you are mentally ill, then you should talk about it, but we can talk about our mental health in a very positive way. It doesn't have to get to mental health is a problem for me, so now I'm going to talk about it. And the big happy head on you is me talking about my mental health, which is predominantly good, and I do have moments of sadness, or I do have barriers that come up in my life.
Well, you've got kids.
Yeah, absolutely. So, but at the end of the day, it's because I mind my mental health that I'm generally feeling good, and this is a sharing of the things that I do to mind my mental health. But I suppose when you pull away at some of those threads, you see that nobody in their right mind would probably feel as happy as I do, based on some of the experiences that I bring to the stage. But I think I think the message is positive, and I'm not going to be a fake comedian. I'm not going to stand there and say, oh, I've had the trials and tribulations. I haven't. I've had a lovely life.
I blame your dad. He's far too happy.
This is it.
So you have a bunch of gigs coming up. I know that you're doing the Groove Festival. You've got All Together Now. It seems like, and I mentioned Tommy Tiernan as well. It seems like a particularly busy time, or is it just that I've just noticed that you're busy lately? Because I know this is your kind of like your love, and pretty much all the way through every year you're doing this, but it seems to have gone up a gear, or maybe I'm just sort of.
I think it's a bit of both. I think I'm getting busier because I'm, putting the work into it, putting the energy into it, and putting the commitment into it. And then there's also been a kind of, one or two things have fallen into place nicely, you know what I mean? But, the Groove Festival comes from having conversations last year and the year before about how comedy would be a great presence at Groove. Or the All Together Now Festival, I think, is the fallout from doing the Show Me the Funny competition, where I got to showcase to these guys who run that festival, or the comedy, I should say, at that festival, that this is what I do. And I think they saw in that competition that I was a host more than anything else, and I think that's why they've come back and said, will you please host this comedy tent? So I think it's a bit of both. I think you have to put yourself out there for the opportunities to land on your lap. I think it was Norman Wisdom said that people call him lucky, and he says it's funny, the harder I work, the luckier I get. You know what I mean? I think that is his quote.
Yeah.
But I feel that it's a bit like that now. There's a lot of people saying to me, oh, you're lucky, so and so, and I'm like, yeah, I am very, very lucky and so grateful. Yeah. But I also do work hard, so it's a bit of both.
Well, that whole thing of the overnight success often takes about 10 years to get right. And,
like those guys that do the hidden camera show, the Impractical Jokers. I remember them saying we were a 20-year overnight success. Do you know, because they had improv since teenage years, and suddenly they get this big opportunity on a TV show, and people go, an overnight success, and they're like, we've put the legwork in. And I think that's every comedian's journey, really, that do eventually break through whatever level they've set themselves. And I'm always modest as well, like these are lovely achievements for me, but in the scheme of things I'm still no superstar, and I have no intention of being,
Well, you've got kids, you're not allowed to. I think the kids keep you grounded. There's no way you're going to get lit. Your ego's never going to get that high. We'll just finish by saying that it's pretty much the third Thursday of every month. It might move a little bit depending on the availability of a certain headline or whatever, but third Thursday every month, upstairs, Harbour Bar, beautiful night. And I've been going there for years. Absolutely my favourite night out. And sometimes it does feel almost like you're going to a swingers club. You feel like you should throw your keys into a jar. There's a sense of it's a community, and a sense of you just don't know what's going to happen tonight, because it is, of course, unknown that these gags that may have worked yesterday in a room will either soar in this room or maybe fall flat. But that's the beauty of it. It is just that the unknown, the sense of, if that guy or that girl has been up on stage before, they've got something going on that they have, want to share, and that often is just magnificent. If it's even just two good gags is a joy, but when it's like 10, 20, 30 good gags, I mean, for you, is it often a surprise? I don't know if you get surprised very often if you're not really
all the time, and I shouldn't be able to ad lib anymore because I literally know everybody in the audience. It's like a little family. But there are surprises all the time, and the more you get to know people, or even the same people can show up one particular night, and suddenly the smallest thing is the obvious thing in the room about one particular person, and it becomes such a big thing for me on that night. But then also reflecting on the performers, I can hear sets 10 times over, and then somebody throws in a new piece into their set, or it clicks very well and resonates with that particular audience, and it's like it's like living it over again for the first time, so it doesn't get boring for me. It genuinely doesn't, and the day it does, I shouldn't be promoting.
Boom.